Cheryl and I own a small corn farm out in Buckingham, Iowa. It's quiet, wide open, and the kind of place where you can see every star at night. This happened back in August of 2018, on one of those slightly rainy summer nights. Cheryl and I have spent our whole lives in the farm life. It's all we know. Out here, space is endless and people are few. Our closest neighbors, George and Kenny, each live about half a mile away in opposite directions. Both farmers just like us. When you live that far from town, your neighbors become your friends. We'd often have them and their wives over for dinner or drinks, and that night was no different. George and his wife came by for board games and whiskey, and before we knew it, we were all laughing too loud and feeling the buzz. They left around 11, and since their house was just a short, straight drive down the dirt road, we didn't worry. Cheryl and I stayed up a little longer, finishing a bottle of wine while watching one of our favorite movies. The rain tapped gently on the windows and the house felt warm and safe. We were just starting to doze off on the couch, the kind of comfortable silence that comes after a good night, when suddenly there was a knock at the front door. A knock at the door that late felt wrong, like the kind of wrong that makes your skin prickle. We never had strangers out here, not at midnight, not on rainy nights. The first knock was soft, then I thought I heard a voice say something muffled, so I turned the TV down and waited. 20 seconds later, there was another set of knocks, harder this time, and a voice called through the wood. "We need help." My heart jumped. I was about to stand up when Cheryl grabbed my arm and shook her head, eyes wide-mouthed. "Don't." I whispered, "I'll just ask who it is," but she said quietly, "Don't let them know we're home." Still, I went to the door and put my eye to the peephole. From the other side, the voice sounded relieved, almost urgent. "Oh, thank God, can you open up? We're lost." Clean, simple words that should have been harmless. I asked, "Who's we?" And the voice said, "My wife and I." I told him to have his wife speak. There was a pause long enough to feel wrong. Then he answered, "Yeah, but she's not next to me right now." That line made red flags pop up all over my head. The voice had a weird edge, like a man trying to make his tone sound higher or softer. To keep our nerves from screaming, I tried to joke and said, "George, is that you?" George was our neighbor and a big goof. If anyone would pull a stunt, it could be him. For a second, the voice went deeper and said, "Yeah," and I felt foolish for worrying. But the relief didn't last. I asked, "Prove it. What's your wife's name?" Instead of a name, an unfamiliar voice scoffed, "That's a trick question." My smile died. I grabbed my phone and called George. Cheryl was watching me, whispering we should call the police. The phone rang 3 times and George picked up. I asked, "Are you at my front door?" He said no. I told him someone was there trying to trick me. He said he'd hurry over and hung up. Keep in mind we'd been drinking. Our judgment already fuzzed, so the whole thing felt even stranger. Then the knocks came again. I yelled through the door, "I've got a shotgun, leave now." The voice answered, "Calm. We just need to use a phone." Cheryl dialed 911, but out here it takes forever for help to arrive. We heard footsteps on the wooden deck, slow and deliberate, 2 or 3 sets circling. They stopped at a window with the blinds closed, and we could hear one of them trying to lift it. Cheryl screamed into the phone, "Get away!" I screamed back at the house, louder than I ever had. "Get the—" My blood hammered. I ran upstairs, threw open the closet, and grabbed our shotgun. Seconds later, there were heavy pounds on the door, and suddenly George's voice was outside, shouting, "Open up!" I yanked the bolt and let him in, and he came in with his shotgun as pale as we were. He'd seen no one when he pulled up, just footprints in the mud that led away. We waited, shotguns across our knees, until the officer finally arrived. He walked the yard with flashlights and shook his head, found nothing but disturbed leaves and a sense that someone had been testing us, pushing the line. That night we learned how thin the safety around a farm can feel. Out where there's so much space, the smallest knock can mean everything. After that night, we took the officer's advice and installed cameras on both the front and back of the house. It's crazy we never thought to do that before. Living out here, you start to believe nothing bad could ever happen. But now, every time I walk past that front door, I still get chills. The thought that the only thing separating us from whoever was out there that night was a single wooden door, it still makes my stomach turn. We never found out who they were or what they wanted, and honestly, I'm not sure I want to know. Some things are better left unanswered. What do you think it was? A break-in attempt or something else entirely? This story happened at my grandparents' farm during the summer of 2018. They were out of town, so I was staying there alone for a few nights, just making sure everything was fine. It was easy money, or at least I thought it would be. On the last night, I was sitting in the living room, half watching TV, half dozing off, when I heard this strange sound coming from outside, out by the cornfield. At first, I didn't think much of it. Farms make noise all the time, wind in the stalks, animals moving around, maybe a deer passing through. But then, the cows started mooing. Not one or two, not the occasional call you get at night. Every single cow in the barn started mooing at once. Loud, panicked, desperate. Anyone who's ever worked on a farm knows that's not normal. When every cow reacts at the same time, it means something's out there. Something they can sense before you can. And that's when I realized I wasn't as alone as I thought. Something or someone had to spook them that badly. Cows don't all panic like that unless something is really wrong. And since I was the only one on the farm that night, it was up to me to find out what was happening. I threw on my coat, trying to shake the unease crawling up my back. But just as I reached for the door, a high-pitched cow scream cut through the night. I froze. It didn't sound natural. It sounded like pain, like terror. My whole body went cold. Something terrible was happening out there. I ran upstairs to my grandpa's room, dropped to my knees, and pulled out the rifle he kept under the bed. My hands were shaking as I loaded it, the metallic clicks echoing too loud in the empty house. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the air felt heavy and still. The cows were still crying out, their voices filling the dark. I moved toward the barn, keeping the gun ready. When the moment I stepped inside, the smell hit me, mud, hay, and panic. The cows shifted nervously, their eyes wide and wet under the dim light. Nothing looked out of place at first. Every stall was full, but then when I reached the far end, I realized one was empty. One cow was gone. That didn't make sense. I was sure it had been tied up earlier. Then I heard it again. That same high, broken sound, but this time, it was coming from the cornfield behind the barn. I stepped outside and instantly felt eyes on me. The field stretched out into darkness, the tall stalks swaying in the faint wind. And then, I swear, I heard voices. Low, whispering, like people talking quietly to each other. I shouted into the dark, "Who's out there?" No answer. My pulse hammered so loud it drowned out everything else. I fired 2 rounds into the air. The echo rolled through the fields, and suddenly, silence. The cows stopped. The whispers stopped. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then came the sound of footsteps. Slow, heavy, from inside the cornfield. My throat went dry. I didn't want to go in there. Every instinct screamed to go back inside the house, lock the doors, and wait for daylight. But this was my grandparents' farm. I couldn't just let someone or something walk through it like they owned the place. So I stepped into the corn. The stalks brushed against my shoulders, whispering as I moved. My flashlight beam cut through the rows, but it didn't reach far. That's when I heard them. More footsteps. Not 1 or 2, but many. All around me. I kept turning in circles, trying to track them. Then, down one of the rows ahead, I saw a figure standing there, dressed in all black, not moving, just staring. My heart jumped into my throat. I raised the rifle and shouted, "Get out of my field!" He didn't move. I fired another round into the air. Still nothing. Then, slowly, he started walking toward me, arms raised slightly like he was telling me to lower my weapon. I screamed again. I said, "Get out," and took a step back. That's when I realized he wasn't alone. All around me, figures stepped out from between the rows. 6 or 7 of them, maybe more. All dressed in dark clothes, faces covered with masks, white, expressionless like porcelain. They stood in silence, surrounding me in a wide circle. The one in front stopped about 20 feet away. For a few seconds, no one moved. The air was so still it hurt to breathe. Then they began to chant, soft at first, then louder. It didn't sound like English. The rhythm was strange, rising and falling like a song. My body went cold. It felt like they were building to something, some ritual, some sick performance, and I was the center of it. I didn't wait to find out. Turned and ran, crashing through the corn, my breath tearing in my throat. I fired 6 rounds behind me, the shots lighting up flashes of their masks as they ducked away. I heard them scatter, their footsteps pounding in the opposite direction. When I finally broke out of the field, gasping for air, I saw something that made my stomach twist. Right there on the ground near the edge of the barn was a cow's head, fresh, eyes open, set in the middle of a circle of candles. The wax was still melting, flickering like nothing had disturbed it. I stumbled back, dropped the rifle, and threw up right there in the dirt. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely dial the phone. I called the police, told the operator everything I could through broken breaths. She said officers were on the way, but out here in the country that could take a long time. I locked every door, turned off every light, and waited. The cows were silent now, the whole farm dead still. But even from inside, I could swear I saw shadows moving just beyond the corn. After calling the police, I phoned my parents, still shaking, and begged them to come get me. My dad said he'd be there in an hour, and that was the longest hour of my life. When the officer finally arrived, I ran outside in tears and told him everything. He searched the barn and cornfield, then found the cow's head, exactly where I said it was. He called for a full search team, turning the place into a crime scene. When my parents arrived, I could barely speak. They took me home, and my grandparents later installed cameras all over the farm. We never found out who those people were or what they were doing, but I know I'll never forget it. My name's Howard. I'm 25 years old, and I live on my family's farm here in the middle of Arkansas. It's a small family place, nothing commercial, just enough land to keep us busy. When my parents go out of town, I'm the one who looks after everything. They've always said I'll take over the farm one day, since I'm the oldest and their only son. But to be honest, I don't see myself spending my whole life out here. It's too quiet, too isolated, and after what happened last July, I know for sure I don't want to. My parents had gone on a week-long trip, leaving me and my two sisters, Crystal and Morgan, to take care of the place. Everything was normal for the first few days, feeding the animals, checking the fences, the usual stuff. The kind of peace that makes you forget how far away you are from everyone else. But one night, that peace disappeared. It started later that night, just when we were about to head to bed. Crystal was upstairs in her room working on her summer college courses. Morgan and I were in the living room, half watching some dumb TV show and half talking about how much we all wanted to get out of this farm life. I was 25 and already felt trapped, like the quiet of the fields was starting to close in. Still, growing up here meant knowing one thing for sure. There's always something out there that wants what's yours. Predators aren't just coyotes or foxes. Sometimes they're people. Folks who sneak in to steal your crops, your tools, or whatever else they can grab. It doesn't happen often, but it happens enough that we keep a few guns around just in case. Around 10, the dogs out back started barking like mad. Both of them, non-stop. That deep, panicked bark that means something's wrong. I got up, grabbed a flashlight, and went outside to see what had them worked up. The air was thick and still, and both dogs were facing the cornfield, tails stiff, growling. I told them to quiet down, and for a second they did. Then I heard it. A sound that didn't belong, a whistle. Faint, but clear. And definitely human. My stomach dropped. I'd never had to deal with a trespasser when my dad wasn't home, but I knew I had to do something. I ran back inside, grabbed one of the rifles from the cabinet, and told my sisters there was someone in the cornfield. They both immediately told me not to go chasing after whoever it was, that it was way too dangerous and too dark. And they were right. The thought of walking into those tall, silent stalks at night made my skin crawl. So instead, I went back out to the yard, gun in hand, the dogs barking again. I fired a shot into the air, loud enough to shake the ground, and shouted, "Get off our land!" The sound echoed across the fields, and for a few moments everything went quiet again. The dogs stopped barking, and I could hear my sisters laughing from inside, teasing me for going full action hero. I laughed too, a little, just to ease the tension, but it didn't last. A minute later, the dogs started again, this time worse, barking and howling like something was right there. I went outside and froze. There was a man standing by the cornfield, maybe 20 feet away, just beyond the edge of the light. The dogs went wild, pulling at their chains, and the guy just stood there, staring. I shouted, "Hey!" And the moment I did, he bolted straight into the corn. I ran a few steps after him and fired another warning shot into the air, but the only answer was the echo. I stopped near the dogs, shaking, trying to decide what to do. There was no way in hell I was going in there after him. I unchained the dogs and brought them inside. I told my sister someone had been standing right by the field watching us. We called Dad right away. He told me to stay calm, to be the man of the house, to protect my sisters. If he comes back, he said, fire another warning shot. Don't let him think you're scared. We double-checked every lock, every window, and then went to our rooms. Each of my sisters took one of the dogs with them, and I kept the gun next to my bed. I had my window open a little, just enough to let the night air in, and tried to distract myself with a movie on my laptop. Maybe an hour passed before I heard it again. That same whistle. My blood went cold. I jumped up and looked out the window. There he was. A shadow moving slowly through the grass near the barn, his face hidden in the dark. Then, as if he knew exactly where I was, he stopped, turned, and looked straight at my window, still whistling. It wasn't a song. It wasn't even random. It was rhythmic, mocking, almost. I grabbed the gun, aimed at the ground near him, and fired. The sound exploded through the night, and he flinched hard before taking off toward the front of the house. I didn't see where he went after that, but I knew he was gone. I waited, listening for footsteps, but there was nothing. I told my sisters what happened and promised them he wouldn't come back, and deep down, I really believed that, but for the rest of that night, I didn't sleep a second. I sat by the window with the gun across my lap, eyes locked on that dark line where the cornfield met the yard, waiting to see if the whistle would come again. It never did. We never found out who it was or why they were there. Maybe it was just some dumb teenager or a group of them trying to mess with us for fun. Or maybe it was something darker, someone who meant real harm. Either way, that night changed how I see this place. The farm used to feel peaceful, safe, like home. Now every time I hear the wind move through the corn, I think of that whistle and wonder if someone's still out there, watching. What do you think it was? A prank? Or something much worse? Tell me in the comments, I read them all. And if this story gave you chills, the next one will make you question what's really hiding in the dark. Keep watching.